Hello and a warm welcome everybody. This is Claudia Klingelhofer for ISPO and we're exploring sustainable challenges. Today it's all about the consumer and how brands can win the consumer game with their sustainability strategies. For that, I have Fredrik Ekström with me. He's a brand strategist and consumer behavior specialist with more than 20 years of experience. Hi Fredrik.
Hi Claudia, nice to meet you today.
Fredrik, you're working globally for various lifestyle brands within sports, outdoor, fashion, and food and beverage. You're specialized in consumer-centric sustainability strategies. And what you say is that brands must rethink their engagement strategies to stay relevant and successful. To earn value, they must create value. To create value, they must understand real consumer aspiration and triggers. Tell us, how did you come to that assumption?
Yes, so what I mean is that we used to have a time when consumers adored brands and turned brands into fandoms where they watched them with awe from a distance. But today brands need to understand that the game plan has changed and they need to reevaluate how they communicate and how they build culture and how they build community around the brand and the brand stories. And the best way to address this is to really align the three worlds of insight strategies and activations into what I call winning game strategies that is more connected to the consumer world where we can create value for the consumer. And this is based to engage with real people in the real world. But it's also important to remember that a successful consumer-centric sustainability strategy or a transformation does not happen with a single campaign. It's based on like a roadmap of strategic, creative, and operational decisions that, if acted or executed consistently, would put a brand on the path to both sustainability but also to consumer excitement, cultural status, and then in the end, business success. So a lot of brands have, I believe, and what we see, acted on like that the value creation part is based on internal decisions rather than external wants from the consumer.
A lot of insight you've gained from your reports, the Next Sustainable Consumer and Next Outdoor Consumer report. Can you tell us a bit more about those?
Yeah, definitely. I started those projects in 2020, so it's 4 years ago when I started tracking the consumer. It was based on that I wanted to track the sustainable consumer in the wake of the pandemic. What was going on? How did behaviors change? And how did aspirations change? Mainly because I felt that there was a knowledge gap within executive teams and finance team regarding the possibilities around sustainability. And a lot of the discussions at the time were based on people looking at old sales numbers, drawing the conclusions that customers does not buy sustainable products, does not want sustainable products. And they said that we understand that this thing of sustainability is happening, but our customer doesn't want it. It's not relevant for us. Leading to a business as usual kind of decision where brands neglected the future aspirations from people. So what I wanted to do instead was to start tracking aspirations, status, attractions, anxieties connected to it rather than sales numbers. And from 2024, I also built up the outdoor report where I track aspirations to nature, outdoor activities, trends and behaviors, and then correlate it with the sustainable consumer behavior.
And what kind of data do you use? Is this representative or is it just a segmented sample?
It's based on web panels, mainly quantitative research, so 2,500 respondents, which is nationally representative. So it's the general population. It's not only outdoor people, so it's targeting everyone. But I also have a boost of Gen Zs in the data samples, meaning that I can break out the younger generation and only look on numbers for them and breaking it out to different archetypes, etc., without losing it, ending up in too small boxes of people. So 2,500 people and nationally representative, but also for the outdoor report, I've done 32 interviews with industry experts representing outdoor brands and organizations. So it's a mix of quantitative and qualitative.
And it's national representative for Sweden, I guess?
Sorry. Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland. So it's the Nordic region. Yeah.
And so how widespread would you say are consumer knowledge and interest in sustainable outdoor consumption?
I mean, I would say that the consumer interest is high regarding sustainability. Even when we have entered like macro trends of green fatigue and economic uncertainty and geopolitical chaos, we can see that there's still a big interest in sustainability, where 8 out of 10 wish that they had more knowledge about it. They get impressed by people who have knowledge and teach it, and they get attracted to people that have knowledge and seemingly live by it. But in the same time, we also can say that, 8 out of 10 feel that their own actions disappear into a black hole, doing neither good nor bad. They are afraid of being negatively judged if they do wrong choices, which leads to kind of a paralysis paradox, where the consumer wants to do good, but they get paralyzed in their actions because they don't know how to and don't have the toolbox to evaluate their decisions. So this paralysis feeling of afraid of being judged also fuels a feeling of escapism in the consumer. Like, why can't we just have fun? It's too much to handle. So yes, to put it short, interest is high, knowledge is low.
And in your reports, you've identified 3 so-called green archetypes of consumers. Could you give us a brief description of them?
I created an index that I call the Sustainable Consumer Readiness Index, which ranges from persuasion to dedication. To make it easier for brands to approach the consumer, I need to simplify the consumer into different boxes, which ended up in 5 different archetypes that I've been tracking. Because we know that sustainability as like a trustworthy one solution label has been co-opted a long time ago. So we need to understand what is triggering the different consumers. There's not one sustainable consumer. So in the research, I identified 5 different approaches to sustainability, where 3 of them stand out to us, what we call them having a green mindset. When I've been tracking these archetypes since the beginning in 2020. So it's data that I can track over the years. And it's been made out of a clustered questions of knowledge, interest, image, and attitudes. The 3 green archetypes that is interesting to know more about is what I call the dedicated pioneers, which stands for 12% of the populations. And they have a trigger on values like holistic sustainability. They have high knowledge, they live by it, they think it's important, and they genuinely adapt to it. Then we have the anxious activists. They stand for 28%, and they are results driven. So they want to know, what results does this action give? What's happening? If I buy into your product, what's the real result out of that? And the third one, the biggest one, is what I call the eco swingers. They go back and forth in their consumption. They believe that sustainability is important. They believe it's the real deal, but it's also a tool to build their own image, to curate stories from the different brands and buy into their project. So they are more triggered on the storytelling. So The 3 green archetypes would be then dedicated pioneers on values, anxious activists on results, and eco-swingers driven by storytelling.
And can you explain how those are connected to doing sports and outdoor activities?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we start with that, we asked the general population, like, how often do you do outdoor activities? And with outdoor activities, we gave them a description of like trail running in the mountains, hiking, camping, etc. So not just being out walking with a dog or laying on the beach. And then we got the general population, about 56% said that they every month, on a monthly basis, go out and do outdoor activities. And with 36% doing it a couple of times per month. But when we break that down and start looking at the different archetypes, we can see that on the dedicated pioneers, there's 8 out of 10 on a monthly basis that do this kind of more genuine outdoor activities. With anxious activists, it's 60%, and then with eco-swingers, it's only 47%. So we can see that it goes from being dedicated to sustainability and dedicated to outdoor activities, goes hand in hand, and then it just trickles down. And when we compare it the other way around, we can also see that sustainability zombies, the archetype that are totally non-motivated in sustainability at all, that doesn't believe it, we can see that of those, 29% have not done any outdoor activities at all during the last year. So we can see that 8 out of 10 dedicated pioneers do it, and then like 3 out of 10 of the sustainability zombies have not done it at all. So there's a direct correlation between dedication to sustainability, dedication to outdoor activities, which I can see that we can see that this spending time in nature cultivates an instinctive desire of wanting to protect it, so to speak, which is great for outdoor brands to know, because the more dedicated outdoor people we can grow, the more dedicated they will also be into sustainability, and the other way around.
That's interesting. But tell us, despite that, a bit more about the proportion of people who do not care or are unwilling to engage in sustainability issues.
We have the two, I mentioned the zombies, and then we also have the skeptic spectators. So the two groups that I don't focus so much on, where we have zombies that need to be genuinely persuaded if they should engage in sustainability. They stand for about 12% of the general population. And then we have skeptic spectators. They kind of like, it's not really for me, but if you show me the convenience, the price, just give it to me, then I could get into it. And those would stand for 11%. So these are the two groups that are not into sustainability.
You mentioned that you paid special attention to Gen Z. How big is the difference between generations regarding awareness and engagement?
Gen Z is growing and have been growing during the years I've been tracking it, and also this last year they grow in being more dedicated. So when we just compare the numbers, we can see general population dedicated pioneers is 12%, but in Gen Z it's 18%. So 1 in 5 of the Gen Zs get into being in the dedicated pioneers spectrum. Good to know with this is also that I don't track this with sales numbers or actual activities. It's their aspiration of the person they want to be, which is a future-focused perspective. And then with anxious activists is 36% compared to 28% in the general population. So there's also a bigger portion there. And then in eco-swingers, it's only 34% compared to 37% in the general population, which means that Putting those together, 9 out of 10 Gen Zs identify themselves as being part of one of the 3 green archetypes. And with this, we could also see that the interest is higher, the status is higher, the impressive power and the attraction is bigger, but the knowledge is lower, which also fuels both status and the paralysis paradox. It's easier to just have fun.
Okay, after that dive into social statistics, let's go to the working level, kind of. You developed a strategic approach that you call the winning game matrix. Can you tell us about that, and especially how can brands benefit from this perspective?
Yeah, so the winning game matrix is a tool to simplify your own assessment as a brand to get started, with the objective of creating a great consumer-centric sustainability strategy, so to speak. So I don't review what you do internally in supply chains and all the different topics you need to do. This is more from a consumer perspective. How could I build up this with my company? Meaning, what initiatives do you do today? How much of them do you do? For whom do you do it? And how do you communicate it? So first, we know from the archetypes that 12% triggers on values, 28 triggers on the results, and 37 triggers on a great storytelling, which gives us a set of communication pillars. And I usually put those in verticals. So we start building up the matrix. And second, also from the research, we know that the consumer value brands highly, like dream brands within sustainability, if they can show initiatives that target social issues by 38%, planetary issues by 33%, and future trust issues by 29%, which gives us a set of horizontal layers. So when I put the pillars of the archetypes and the layers of the initiatives, you start getting your boxes that you can use to assess your brand today. You can see then, what do I do today on a social initiative level? What do I do on a planetary level? And what do I do on a future trust level? Future trust is knowing the latest research, being able to answer all the questions, etc. And then you can map those in the initiatives you do into the different archetypes. So if I do a social initiative, how do I bring that out with a great storytelling for the swingers? How do I show the results for the anxious activists? And how do I talk about the value around it to attract the dedicated pioneers? For brands to start assess, they usually figure out that they have an imbalance in the kind of initiatives they do, that they maybe focus on one of the layers or one of the pillars, but not focusing so much on the rest. And this is a way to build up both a holistic approach, but with a consumer in mind rather than having the internal focus of what you should do.
Besides the winning brand metrics, there's another part of the puzzle for you. It's brand activism. Could you explain what you mean with this and how this could help brands to win the consumer?
Definitely. So one of the topics that we've been tracking now for some time is regarding if brands should openly support and engage with social and environmental movements. And I mean, the answer is pretty loud and clear, yes. There's 8 out of 10 of the consumer that want brands to openly engage and support environmental movements. And this has been going on for some time. But when we compare it to if the consumer by themselves are engaged, there's the other way around. So there's 8 out of 10 that are not engaged by themselves, but they want brands to be engaged and they want brands to openly support it. And then when we look at Gen Z, this is even bigger. It's 9 out of 10 that want brands to do it. And also the following question, when we get 7 out of 10 Gen Zs that also wants to support the brand by consuming from them if they do this kind of actions, which opens up a possibility for brands to start using this as a tool. I mean, of course, it needs to be with a good heart and a good purpose to do it. But it is also a really strong tool for the consumer to understand, what do you stand for? What are you doing? How are you doing this? Because we could also see from the earlier report that there is a shift from this why kind of perspective into the what kind of perspective. So with all these years that brands have communicated the great purpose, like there is all this great stuff that we're gonna do. Now they wanna see what you actually do. Engaging with organizations, that is a easy step to start doing this. What's also interesting is that we asked the question in what topics. They get like this long list and they can rate what kind of topics they find most interesting for brands to engage with. And number 1 is protecting biodiversity. Number 2 is littering the oceans. And number 3 is to get rid of fossil energy. That's like the top 3 are in the list, which means that it gives a hint for brands that if you could genuinely and trustworthy stand for something where you protect biodiversity, and you can align that with an organization that do it, and then you can tie it into something that creates value for the consumer, they will look at your brand with a positive perspective, which is easy and good way to start with something.
But isn't it obvious, and is it like to sell something and saying you sell something with doing something good?
Yeah.
Isn't this a bit, I don't know, obvious that you just promote consuming things with ethical doing good deeds?
I could say yes and no on the question. It all depends on how you do it. You can do everything with a bad purpose, and just supporting an organization to promote a new Black Friday style that will go out of trend in 2 weeks. That would not be the correct way of doing it. But doing it in a way that where you genuinely support a cause, that you genuinely have a feeling for, and then that you openly support and engage with. And if you would connect that with a product that is also a much better produced product in a lot of other different kind of ways, then by directing the consumer to buy that product instead of another product, I wouldn't say that that is a bad choice, but it all depends. There's not such an easy way to say black and white, yes or no on it. It could be misused by brands, but it could also be used in a positive and good way where you do. I could give an example from when I was creative director at Treetorn, a Swedish heritage brand. We created from, it's a brand that produces a lot of rain jackets with nylon. We built up, so we collected discarded fishing nets, and then made out of that nylon, we made new jackets. And we made it into a collab with Naturkompaniet to highlight the problem of all these 650,000 tons of fishing nets that floats around in the ocean. And then we talked about it for a season, and then we did it with Sea Life Trust and filtered money into protecting marine protected areas. And then the next we were doing collab with Nigel Caborn to bring up a storytelling in some higher fashion kind of pillars. And then, instead of selling a traditional jacket, you could sell a better jacket, funnel money to organizations, talk about the problems in the oceans, and you can highlight the issue to more people. I would say it's different ways of doing it. You could do it with a good heart or not with a good heart. I prefer the good hearts. Yeah.
That's nice. So yes, I think I learned quite a lot, but finally I have to ask you, is there anything more besides winning game metrics, besides brand activism, besides those interesting archetypes, something you'd like to mention and get to know for the people in the industry to win the game for the years to come?
I would like to highlight 3 important trends for brands to keep in mind for the years to come. Number 1 is from fandom to fundom, the evolving consumer brand relationship. The number 2 is the new creative collectives, blending culture with outdoor activities. And number 3 is trailfulness, the intersection of mental well-being and outdoor activities. I can describe them pretty shortly if you want. From fandom to fundom, with that we mean that it describes the shift from passive consumer admiration to active engagement with brands. In the past, consumers were content to be fans, supporting brands from a distance. And today, there's a growing desire for deeper interaction where consumers want to be co-creators, advocates, and active participants in branded universes, which opens up for brands to start creating these experiential arenas in different ways. With the new creative collectives, I would say that we can see this happening. I would say it kind of started with running clubs, how they evolved to become the new kind of streetwear trend driver in some way. But it's been growing into trail running, ski touring, climbing, etc. in all these kind of niche communities. And these collectives, they foster a sense of community and belonging, where individuals both explore physical limits and also creative potentials, where a lot of content creators and creative people in general just flock together in these kind of groups. The third one, trailfulness, the intersection of mental well-being and outdoor activities, I would say goes very to my heart quite a lot. It's emphasizes not just physical well-being, but also the profound mental health benefits that gets derived from spending time in natural environments. And it represents more of a mental well-being that becomes in central focus of the outdoor activities. Meaning that instead of, if you go trail running, instead of just setting the distance and the speed, you set it out to be also a mindfulness where you have breathing exercises and stuff like that. You're getting into more of those kind of feelings. So with these 3 trends, I would say it's good to keep in mind for brands for the years to come.
Interesting. Thanks a lot. Yes, we have to speak soon in 2025 or 2026 about those trends, see if they're there. So thanks a lot. And yes, I hope you're successful with the next report also. Thank you, Fredrik, for your insights.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's it. Thanks, Fredrik, and thanks all for listening. And I hope you liked what you've heard. If so, you can share the content, spread the word, and subscribe to ISPO. And of course, you can get in touch with us or get in touch with Fredrik. You will find all the information in the box. Thanks. Bye-bye.